Jiu-jitsu nerds, it is a very special day because we have the mastermind, John Danaher, who is going to be leading Team New Wave at CJI2. John, how's it going? I know you recently had hip surgery, so how's everything going for you?
Oh, it's fine. I think today is 9 weeks to the day since my second hip replacement. I'm recovering pretty quickly. I'm walking around. I'm mobile again. I don't use a cane or crutches anymore. I can get around and go into the gym. I can't demonstrate moves yet, but I can have my students do the demonstration for me while I give instructions. So I'm pretty much back in the saddle in the beginning stages, and hopefully strong again soon.
And you're staying busy. How is the new gym coming along as well?
Really well. Gordon's done an amazing job of setting out and decorating the gym. He actually has home decorating skills that I never knew he had. Far better than I'll ever have, that's for sure. So he's done a pretty amazing job. The gym looks really good.
Best grappler of all time and also interior designer as a slight side hustle. We love that for him.
I think he's got a whole new career ahead of him here. I was wrong to push him into jiu-jitsu. I should have gone in different directions. Home decorating, that's where it's at.
I love that. I cannot wait to see how it comes along over there in Austin, Texas. And Craig Jones, he did want me to ask you a special question. Don't be worried, John. He just wants to know, how much do you miss New York City? And do you identify as a Kiwi, a New Yorker, or a born-again Texas cowboy?
That's a great question. I'm probably going to offend a lot of people with my answer. New Zealand, I think, was one of the best places in the world to grow up in. It's an incredible place for a young child to grow into adulthood. So I kind of got the best of that element. New York City, I think, is the best place to spend your adulthood because it's truly an international city. It's one of the few places in the world where you can live in one location and yet have experience of the whole world. So I think it's the best place to live your adult life. I never actually wanted to leave New York. I love New York. And leaving New York is one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life. But the team wanted to go to initially to Puerto Rico. And so I packed up everything. I left basically my whole life. I'd lived 30 years in New York. I left all my friends and all the connections I'd made and my own teacher. So it was a tough decision. I'd be lying if I said I don't miss New York. When I went back for my hip replacement, it was great to see the city. It looks like it's come back pretty strongly since COVID. It's looking pretty good. And it was wonderful to go back there and relive some old memories.
Yes, I was listening to the Jake Shields podcast and you were talking about training with Renzo Gracie in the 90s and how there was a Kung Fu gym that had all these different martial artists from different backgrounds come together, sharing mats, but they all had one thing in common, and that was their hate towards jiu-jitsu guys. Can you kind of explain to me why that might have been?
I think it was just a product of the time. You must remember, it's probably quite difficult for the younger viewers watching this video to get a grasp of what martial arts was like before the UFC. You have to have been raised in the 1970s and 1980s where martial arts was seen as like almost entirely striking dominated. Grappling martial arts were not really taken seriously at all. And the one huge problem in martial arts in the 1970s and the 1980s was this eternal question of which martial art was best, but there was no testing ground by which you could actually say the various arts actually fought each other. There were a few limited experiences. You'd have like karate versus Muay Thai in Thailand. They had a few things like this, but there was never just a single location where the various martial arts could fight each other under very free rule sets until the UFC. And so the early UFCs were like this incredible martial arts scientific experiment where all these questions that have been asked for decades as to which was the best martial art suddenly came into this pressure of testing. And jiu-jitsu did spectacularly well in the early years. From around 1992 through to about 1996, jiu-jitsu or more or less dominated the early MMA scene. The wrestlers didn't know any submission holds, so they would just get submitted. They didn't understand the guard position or something like this. And so it was this incredible testing ground where jiu-jitsu did spectacularly well. And it's probably fair to say there was a little bit of resentment from other martial arts at the time, especially traditional martial arts. I think we felt a little bit of heat from them. As imagine people who had invested 20 years of their life in Wing Chun or Hung Gar Kung Fu or some esoteric form of karate or something like this, and then suddenly this upstart martial art that no one had heard of before, no one even knew it existed, was suddenly getting all the attention and turning the martial arts world upside down. And so understandably, there was probably a little bit of resentment in those early days.
Do you remember a moment in time that was comparable to what we had with ADCC versus CJI in terms of more eyeballs being on jiu-jitsu? Like if you think back to the 1990s and people are kind of starting to learn more, like was it really Royce Gracie winning UFC and people were like, oh, jiu-jitsu? Or was there a different moment in time that you kind of remember standing out as people taking note of this martial art?
I think the early UFCs were probably the single most pivotal moment for North America. Remember, when we talk about the reaction to jiu-jitsu, it's always couched in terms of North America. Remember, Brazil went through its own revolutions in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s with regards to martial arts because they were exposed to jiu-jitsu much, much earlier than we were. And Europe was exposed to it after we were. So European MMA took a little bit longer to develop. And so the world played catch up. It's probably fair to say Brazil was exposed to it first, then North America, and then Europe, Australasia, places like that. Now it's a truly international sport. But for most people, because of the power of media, they were exposed to it first in the early 1990s with the UFC. And it had an absolutely earthquake-like effect on martial arts at that time.
And now we're seeing so many different formats. We've seen combat jiu-jitsu, EBI overtimes, the ADCC rule set. So there's definitely a lot of different ways that people are trying to either make it more entertaining or just to determine who's the best of the best. But when it comes to CJI2, in terms of your favorite format, do you enjoy the chaos that the Quintet style brings?
That's you actually framed that question extremely well, Alex. That was well done on your part. The way you framed it was there's a basic dichotomy in jiu-jitsu as a spectator sport. Do we go entertainment route or do we go who's the best jiu-jitsu player route? When it comes to who is the best jiu-jitsu player, the most pure format is no time limit, almost no referee intervention on a big mat. In that way, you just get to see who's best. But it's also the least entertaining form of jiu-jitsu. Like only a die-hard jiu-jitsu fan would enjoy watching a 2-hour match of two guys who are really good going at each other. Like even for someone like, I mean, you're a hardcore jiu-jitsu fan, but even for you, 2 hours of watching that would be a challenge, especially given that in order to win such a match, the two athletes would have to pace themselves in a way where neither one expended too much energy. So there would be a dreadfully boring first hour, and then finally you'd see some action and drama towards the end. In addition, not only is it less satisfying as a spectator experience, there's also practical considerations. What promoter could possibly run an event like that? You just couldn't do it. You'd have matches, 15 matches, each one 2 hours long. You could never do this. So from a promoter's point of view and a spectator's point of view, the question becomes, okay, if no time limit is the most pure form of jiu-jitsu insofar as it answers the question, who is the best athlete, what can we do to take it the other way to keep what is important about jiu-jitsu, but take matches down to a manageable length for the promoter and make them exciting for the fans? If jiu-jitsu only did no time limit matches, I believe jiu-jitsu would not grow as a sport, because in order to grow, you need spectators, you need interest. And so there's this tremendous tension in jiu-jitsu promotion. We want to preserve what's best about the sport, the effectiveness of it, its ability to enable a smaller person to defeat a larger person, to be realistic. But on the other hand, we need to grow the sport, which means it has to be entertaining. It has to be something realistic for a promoter to put on under realistic conditions. And so somewhere in the middle, you've got to find a compromise. And that is the eternal challenge for jiu-jitsu promotion and the fan base. Everyone has their own way of doing things. Like ADCC goes more towards the realism aspect. Okay, who's the best athlete on the planet? Quintet is more towards entertainment because it introduces chaos into the equation. For example, you could have someone who's incredibly good at jiu-jitsu, but he might lose to someone who's much less skilled in jiu-jitsu to him just because he's already fought 3 guys in a row and he's exhausted. So now you get to see the best guy in the world who's completely exhausted fighting another guy who's much less than him, and that's drama, that's chaos, that's things you can't really prepare for so well in the training room. And so a match that normally would have a very certain outcome, now the outcome is completely uncertain, and that's a big part of what makes entertainment. The things we find most entertaining are the things where the outcome is the least expected. We like upsets, we like chaos, and that is what we find entertaining. I think Craig's done a really good job of finding a middle path between the two. There will be chaos in this one because an athlete can stay in the center, and you will see a lightweight have to fight a heavyweight. That's going to be some interesting matchups in there, let me tell you. You're going to see people fighting in a state of exhaustion against someone who's coming in just fresh. So there is an element of chaos. I do like the fact that he's done it in terms of ADCC weigh-ins rather than just a team weigh-in as they do in traditional Quintet. I think that's an improvement. So I think he's done a fine job of bringing in many of the best athletes in the sport and introducing a degree of chaos into it, which is going to make for a tremendous spectator event. Craig, of course, is a master of social media as well as jiu-jitsu, and he's done a good job of bringing in eyes to the event. It's within one show, it's become one of the most watched and talked about events in jiu-jitsu history. Craig likes to apply shock tactics on social media to garner interest. He always does this very well. And I think fans are excited because this is a match where, this is a tournament where there could be some crazy upsets, things that you never would have anticipated, just in terms of where do the matchups go. The teams are kind of interesting. Some of the teams are gym teams, and some are just, I think they're calling them misfit teams, where they just pile a group of talented people together, and that sort of chaos thrown into the normally very orderly world of jiu-jitsu should make for a very entertaining tournament.
Yes, it's definitely going to be entertaining. I was the one that was saying these misfits have a whole continent to choose from. They shouldn't also get a wild card, but hey, we're going to call them a super team, if you will. When it comes to the New Wave team, there hasn't been any official announcements, but do you think you guys will be utilizing that wild card?
It's a great question. Craig actually offered us a very interesting possibility for a wild card, but it was I won't talk about it publicly, but it was a little too wild for even a wild card. We're contemplating that now. What I can say, Alex, is this: unless there's some crazy injury or something that we just can't foresee, the team as it stands at 66 kilos. I believe Dorian Oliveras would be absolutely superb choice. That young man is truly talented and has a huge future ahead of him. I think he can really shock a lot of people, including people heavier than him in weight. He can fight well above his weight class. At 77 kilos, it's yet to be determined. I'll come back and talk about that in a minute, Alex, because that's the one area where there's the most ambiguity. At 88 kilos, Giancarlo Bodoni will be representing the team. At -99, Luke Griffith will be representing the team. And at +99, it will almost certainly be Daniel Manasoyu. With regards 77 kilo, we actually have some very interesting possibilities here. And I would be lying if I said I know which one we'll go with at this point. It's yet to be determined. I've always liked the idea of Oliver Taza. I think Oliver's an incredible athlete who's always competed so well for the team. He's never had his day in the sun. I always feel like Oliver has this incredible potential that he hasn't quite manifested itself. People know he's good, but I don't think they understand quite how good he is yet. He just needs that one day out on the stage where everything comes together. I think he could shock a lot of people. So that's one great possibility. Another great possibility is the American wrestler Jason Nolf. He's a really interesting guy. I know Craig said he didn't want wrestlers in the tournament, but Jason Nolf is not your standard wrestler in jiu-jitsu. He takes risks. He really tries to go for submission holds. He's one of the most exciting and innovative and creative grapplers I've ever seen in my life. And he just needs more time in the sport. He basically he just trained jiu-jitsu for a couple of years in his backyard with some buddies and got surprisingly good. Then when he came to train with us, he's really talented. He's a tremendous learner. He learns very, very rapidly. He just needs more development time because he'll do a chain of things really well and then make a tactical error that can cost him a match. Often because he loves to take risks. I love that about him, but sometimes he'll take a risk beyond his current jiu-jitsu skill set and get punished for it. But he's a definite possibility. I know I would have loved to have Isaac Michael in the team. He's small enough that he could do the 77 category, but we're not sure if he's eligible yet or not. We'd have to discuss that with Craig and Seth. And there is a wild card option, which would be fascinating. I would love to tell you the name, Alex, but I don't want to do it yet. I'm not being an asshole about it. It's just that it's unconfirmed. It's a tantalizing possibility. Throughout my career, I've never been a person who promises something and then fails. I always try to under-promise and over-deliver. So I wish I could give you the name now, but the possibility only happened 2 days ago, so nothing has been confirmed. So I don't want to give empty promises. But if it were the case, I think it would be a very exciting addition to the team.
Well, we'll definitely have the people on YouTube do some speculation. We have a lot of jiu-jitsu detectives that love to
give a clue.
dive
He
deep
used to
into
train
this.
with us back in the day. And actually at one point asked to be on the team, but nothing came of it because he lived geographically a long distance away. But he's a very talented athlete and competes very well and often actually competes against our team, which would make it kind of interesting. As I get to know more about that, if it is a realistic possibility, we'll announce it. But right now, it's could go either way.
Amazing. Well, that was such an amazing breakdown of Team New Wave and what we know so far. I think it's nice to save a little bit of information as we get closer and have everything kind of locked in, because August 30th and 31st is going to be here before you know it. And we're also going to be having CJI2 again in the alley. And this is going to be making it so people can't run out of bounds and things can be in a more controlled space. So how do you think that affects things for your guys?
Oh, it definitely affects the outcome. Again, it does add a little bit of chaos into the mix. Jiu-jitsu, of course, is always traditionally fought in an open space, and the whole out of bounds question it's a big issue in competition in jiu-jitsu. And then when you make them fight in a semi-enclosed space, any military theorist will tell you the environment you fight in is a huge determinant in the outcome. How well you adapt to the environment is everything in a combat sport. And it's like the difference between fighting in a boxing ring versus a cage. It massively changes the way in which you approach the combat overall. So it definitely is a major factor. Unfortunately, because we're just moving into a new gym, I don't know if we'll have sufficient time to actually bring in a simulation of the ramp area and CJI in time. Hopefully we will be able to. But yes, learning to adapt your game to the environment in which you are matched is a big deal.
And with the way that jiu-jitsu is going, you've seen it go from the ADCCs being in gymnasiums to the biggest stages that it is now, and now with huge payouts. And it's growing at such a rapid pace. But is there any part of you that misses the underground jiu-jitsu feeling that jiu-jitsu used to be?
That's a great question, Alex. Let me think about that. I do kind of, jiu-jitsu did have a kind of weird charm when it was unknown to most of the world, when it was kind of seen as this, 1990s, like, what are you doing? You're rolling around the ground. And you felt like you were a member of like a private club where you knew what was happening, but no one else did. And so there was, kind of like a naive charm to it. But we have to be realistic too. Like the level of jiu-jitsu back then was not even close to what it is today. Like you could take relative beginners today and they would have the knowledge of people that were much more highly ranked than when I started jiu-jitsu. So I think that the level of the sport, the skill of the practitioners has improved massively just because you have so many more people doing it, and there are just starting to emerge now financial compensation for the athletes where they can actually make a living doing jiu-jitsu. In the 1990s, it was kind of an underground sport where you did it while you worked other jobs. Like I worked as a bouncer and taught it at university, and that's how I managed to pay for jiu-jitsu lessons and things like this. Whereas now you can even local competitions pay money now for athletes to win, and you get events like CJI, AIGA, and others which have a pretty impressive payout. I think it's realistic to think that in the future, as things continue going in this direction, athletes of tomorrow could really make a real living out of the sport. And I think as a result, you'll see both the numbers of people involved and the quality of the top athletes improve dramatically.
Helena Crevar was announced as the first athlete for the 100K four-woman bracket. So from your perspective as her coach, someone that recently gave her her black belt, what has her evolution been like under your tutelage?
It's been one of the most incredible coaching experiences I've ever had. Helena came in as a talented 15-year-old. I think her biggest win had been like a fight to win, blue belt, juvenile blue belt championship or something like this. When she first came in, the obvious deficiencies in her game were leg locking and standing grappling skills. And within a very short period of time, she got extremely good at leg locking skills to a degree which shocked everyone in the room. Moreover, it wasn't just the speed with which she picked up techniques, it was also the incredible professionalism and maturity she showed in her approach to training. She has two outstanding parents who guide her along the way and give her full support in her endeavors. So she has an excellent family structure. She has absolutely the approach of someone who wants to be the best in the world at the sport, and trains like it every single day. Like she comes in, trains, is incredibly attentive, sees all the right things, picks up the right information, looks for the right visual cues when she trains, and you see the results. I mean, it's incredible what she's done. In ADCC, her first ever ADCC, she became the youngest medalist in ADCC history, won a silver medal. If just a few things had been different, it could easily have been a gold medal at age 17, which is just insane. And she just continues to make this incredible progress. I know Craig was really excited to put on this event and to have a woman's event go alongside the men's event. And that was missing in the first CJI. But it's here in the second one. I think Helena is an amazing representative for the event itself. You've also got some incredible opponents for her. I think everyone wanted Fionn Davis. That I think is undetermined at this point. I don't know if Fionn's competing or not. That would have been an amazing match. It still is a possibility. But Craig has told me that the women he's canvassing to be in the event are absolutely on the same level as Helena. And it should be an incredible women's event alongside the men's event.
And our last question for you, John, again, it is from Craig. He told me that he's been inviting you back to Puerto Rico and wants to open a new school.
Craig wants to open a school in Puerto Rico.
Yes, he was inviting you to Puerto Rico in the hopes of starting a school. Is this true?
Absolutely not. I think that's an idea that already failed badly once. He wants the same failure again. We want history to repeat itself. I think that's Craig making fun of you, Alex.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's sending me in here to just look like a fool. But that would be kind of cool if that did end up happening.
Actually, I think I was one of the few people that actually really liked Puerto Rico. Everyone else hated Puerto Rico. And I liked it. I thought it was fun training there. And but I know Craig was not a big fan. So the idea of Craig moving back there, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, Craig is a nomad anyway. He can't stay in one place for more than a week. But John, thank you so much for the time. We cannot wait to see you in August. And if there's anything else that you guys are working on that you want the fan base to know about, let us know. But other than that, we're basically wrapped up.
That's great. Thanks so much, Alex. And thanks for the excellent questions.